it to all come
finishing
down
off
to this.
2018 in January, it's all right. I mean,
yeah, it's just a holdover, you know. And yeah, looking at that already, I'm seeing Jackie hovering the Doomfist.
this is going to be a pick that I would expect to see out here. It's either going to be this or the Fire, but if you do play the Fire, you're forcing Red Fox onto the Mercy as well. This is maybe slightly safer for Cyclone Coupling. What I am interested in seeing is if Jackie and the rest of CYC don't find success on the Doomfist, does he change or will they proceed to play?
And are Talon expecting this as well? That's going to be crucial to know because this is the dive in already from Villeneuve.
Yang Yang.
Some damage, nice finish off on Yang Yang. Jackie's over the edge, nice catch by Haru. And now this is a pretty quick, smart cleanup for Talon. They should be getting control of this point here as soon as it unlocks.
And the question does need to be answered now because now is the best time to change. If you do not change now, you are committing to these heroes because you are building up ult charge. If you lose another fight now, you're throwing away too much ult charge to actually make that change until much later. Very early cap out from Talon Esports, very early win, nothing out of the ordinary just yet.
Luckily for CYC, though, Talon don't quite have those ultimates charged up themselves. So they do get kind of another shot at that opening skirmish. It's a little more lopsided. Now, again, the dive in from Villeneuve. This time, Jackie, though, having a much bigger impact. Now that they can just dive in a more directed direction onto the point, they are having no trouble keeping Talon contained and absolutely wipe the floor. Haru, the last to fall. CYC going to get the point.
It's a very early sort of flip around for Cyclone as well. 28% only got in for Talon Esports on that initial win for that first team fight. Now we're moving into number 3. Yang Yang's about to hit that Earth Shatter. They are going to play against Villeneuve on the Winston, which does mean that if they can get the bubble out of the way very early, they are going to have very good shatter opportunities. It's going to be up to TYG and the rest of the team to try and deny Yang Yang.
It's going to be a bit of a tough ask as well. Already seen them trying to line up. That is Villeneuve goes for the
Solo
dive.
shatter.
Nice one onto Persian. They found TYG on the dive as well. Again, Jackie playing the Doomfist to great effect. Villeneuve's done a great job of disrupting the backline the entire time. Actually, even finding Yang Yang is pretty significant. Talon aren't necessarily out of this one just yet, but they aren't necessarily in it either. And with a week going off the edge, Primal Rage run out, that is going to be Talon flagging the retreat, and CYC will hold.
And the opportunity was there for Talon Esports. They got 2 quick return kills. If they got a few more, maybe importantly, got Jackie out of the mix as well. That's when you can start expecting Talon to really swing things back around. Speaking of swinging, it's going to be Villeneuve now, picking up that Rocket Hammer, trying to get a little back against Cyclone Coupling, who now, though, have a lot of ultimates to play with. It will be responded, though, by Talon. We're about to have 5.
That is quite significant. That's an early grab to come out, gets the Transcendence from Persian, but Jackie still finds Villeneuve. That's really big. Opens up a lot here. Nice stun out as he tries to go in with the Rocket Punch, but it doesn't get inherently punished, and it's actually TYG who is overextended in throwing that stun out. And again, CYC just going to repel Talon.
And this was a bit of a heavy expenditure coming out through from Cyclone Coupling on the Talon side, though. Basically just use the Transcendence there. TYG did throw out that rally, but was used for free. Now they get to use Grab instead. It's going to be up to the supports in CYC. Red Fox and GCGG have to be able to use these support ultimates properly. If they layer them too hard, this is going to be a terrible fight.
Very early grab out of a week. This is the one they've got to go off. They can also combo with the self-destruct, which finds
barrier.
Fox. That's huge. No support ultimate. They even drilled down Eternal. I think CYC, they see the writing on the wall. They're going to take this one on the chin. They have pushed it to 99%. They would rather preserve what ultimates they have and let the cap go back to Talon.
The unfortunate thing is the sound barrier can actually counter out most of the damage from the self-destruct, but you also are playing in a patch where Brigitte can still stun through shields, which means for a player like Yang Yang, if he doesn't have the right angle, if he does get stunned out in while the Graviton Surge is in there comboed up with a self-destruct, things can go quite poorly for Cyclone Coupling. So off the back of one well-placed grab by a week, Talon Esports do flip things back around again.
Persian coming up on a Transcendence could be very significant here. That is an advantage that Talon may have. The Shatter, it's okay. They get the follow-up on TYG. Very aggressive sound barrier, I have to say. Nice charge out from Yang Yang to take out Villeneuve as he got booped. It at least turns that into 1-for-1. Trying to find something here with the Meteor Strike. Won't get Persia. Is in a bit of a hairy spot as well. Backs right out. Cyclone Coupling now deciding whether they want to stick in this fight or not. They do. Jackie's going for a wraparound, wants to play a bit of hope with the tanks. Unfortunately goes down to the follow-up. CYC are probably going to have to call a retreat here.
This is where for Cyclone Coupling they needed to probably exit a bit earlier. They thought maybe Jackie can still save this fight. Maybe they can still turn things back around. Control is still in Talon's class right now. It is 86% to 99. This is the final fight that will decide everything. Both teams have Graviton Surges, but only one team has the Earth Shatter and also has a Transcendence, and that's Cyclone coupling, so if they can use those well, they can win.
And there it is. First grab goes out from a weak. No early follow-up thanks to that Earth Shatter. Yang Yang turns the shield. They stop that self-destruct, and Eternal finds Haru. This is the opening they need, and this is already becoming an absolute wash. Late Transcendence from Persia. He only just got it available, and it only keeps Gagora alive. It's long enough to kill Jeki, but Jeki will be back on this point pretty quick. Smart. Persia now down. Gagora going to get finished off as well, and I don't think Talon are going to be able to muster the presence here. Might be able to dive on with the Winston. Villeneuve looking for it. They stall for a couple of extra seconds, but CYC are fully reset. No, not able to get there in time. That is the first one going over to Cyclone coupling.
It's a big confidence boost for Cyclone coupling as well. It sort of reiterates their ability to win off meta, so to speak. They had the Doomfist the entire time. Jeki was adamant that he was going to be able to find success. We're now moving on to Night Market, and this is not Control Center, which means for Cyclone coupling, they're not forced to bring out the 3-3 coats just yet. They can still continue to play the Doomfist here. They can still continue to play, again, quote-unquote off meta. And for Talon Esports, where they did get punished towards the end was the fact that they did start out on the Winston. They had a bit of a late swap onto the Rhine after they lost the fight. Because of that, you look at that final fight there, it was the Earth Shatter and Transcendence combo from Yang Yang and GCGG that was a little bit too much for Talon Esports to handle. Going into Night Market now, it is going to be very much the same as what we saw in Guardians.
This is somewhat reliant on Jeki, not only reliant on Jeki, mind you, but they are somewhat reliant on Jeki also playing either big disrupt or getting a kill somewhere in the back line. But as long as that keeps happening, this will keep working. Gagora getting low, has to duck and weave here. CYG found the stun, no follow-up, and they're just looking for the opening. There it is, Jeki finds it. Instantly, they start reaming through the back line, and that's going to be CYC taking the opening skirmish this time around. That will buy them the point.
So much of these early engages really come down to the pressure as well. What you did see there, Gagora got chunked out quite a bit. He took so much damage. Talon Esports wanted to play aggressively. They were forced backwards. Jeki finally gets that opening, finds that kill onto Villeneuve. That opens everything up. 6v5 in a Ghost comp from Cyclone coupling. I mean, versus Ghost comp, that's really all you need. Here comes that flank from Red Fox.
Yeah, I was looking for something, decided to not quite go for that one. They didn't get the ideal situation, and Jeki taking some painers to back up, but Gagora overextends as well, finds himself one mech down, and with Villeneuve pots, suddenly again, Talon very exposed. Meteor Strike, a little bit defensive, a little bit offensive. It's going to keep Jeki alive, doesn't get any kills, but they're still getting plenty of cleanup here as they push past the 30% mark.
What you didn't want to see is Jeki maybe go too aggressive there with that the Meteor Strike, because if he does go down, suddenly the pressure does dissipate a little bit for the Cyclone coupling side, so they are playing somewhat disciplined here. 41% advantage. It's not like Guardians where they lost that opening fight. It's now Talon Esports that are in a bit of a rough position. It is seemingly now that the Doomfist pick is working quite well for Cyclone coupling, and Talon Esports have not been able to answer on this map.
Ultimate's running relatively even, except on the Zaryas. Eternal is leading a week by about 20 to 25%. Oh, but that's not a strong grab. Only really finding Persia, who is running a Transcendence. It's still enough to catch the members that were not in the grab where the Transcendence was, funnily enough, and Jeki just really cleaning the floor here, given a lot of space to play.
And that's a really ironic way to see how that fight turned out, because you're right, the Graviton Surge actually denied the rest of Talon Esports from receiving the healing off that Transcendence. Persia was stuck where he was. Everyone else was outside of that range. So for Cyclone coupling, they managed to clean that one up. It was a very effective grab at the end of the day. Talon Esports now coming up to what is potentially a final fight. They're missing out.
Oh.
That's that shatter though.
Yeah, nicely done. Good trade back with TYG, but without Jeki, they do have a hard time pushing out the damage. Now grab from a weak. Should be able to follow that up with a self-destruct. Nice charge out as well. Unfortunately, actually, the second bit of displacement from the boot stops that self-destruct from connecting, and Villeneuve finds himself down. Jeki's back alive. He'll come back quick. He's on a Doomfist. The cap did go over, but it's about to go back to Cyclone. Talon, they lose Haru. They lose Gagora. This is all falling apart just when it seemed Talon were about to start the turnaround. Now suddenly at a huge numbers deficit, still bleeding members as well. Lucky they got that cap, but it will not remain that way for long. Even with Villeneuve coming back in with an Earth Shatter, Jeki back in the fray now. This might be some extra percentage points snuck around the side thanks to Haru, but he will be soon to drop. And at 99%, already 1-0 up, it's looking like even TYG going down. Cyclone coupling are on the cusp of capping this. They're on the cusp of taking this and stealing our opening map off the tournament favorites.
And This is where, for Talon Esports now, a lot of questions have to be asked. They have to go back to the drawing board here. It's going to be 2-0 on Lee Jung-Tae. We have not even seen Control Center, but we start to really break down all the 2 maps that we have seen. If we did get Control Center in the middle of that, if we did have a potential Talon victory, we would have gone to all 3 regardless. Yeah. It might have been a 2-1, but it does end up being a 1-0 start for Cyclone Coupling. And I do have to reiterate, this means that Talon Esports, for the first time since week 1, has finally lost a map. That is a big deal.
Yeah. And against, need we remind you all, look, we set this up well enough, right? Don't count this team out, but this is still a team that was 5th place in Chinese Contenders. They're the 4th place seed coming into this playoffs. Sorry, you're quite right. Contenders Trials. 4th place team coming into this playoffs. Immediately just took a 2-0 off our, and let's not beat about the bush here, absolute unequivocal tournament favorites. This is a very interesting series already.
And I do think, though, in this sort of series where we are potentially not going to 4 maps, if you only need 3 maps to win this. So it's not the kind of series where we do go back and think regular season, you got to play all 4 maps here. There is a potential we don't see Escort if a team can go 3-0. But what I do expect from the Talon Esports side is they do have additional members on this roster, 1 additional member. They can play the DPS style as well. They can change up their strategy going into maps 2, 3, and potentially beyond, because they got Aquila waiting to play, and Aquila's got a very good Doomfist himself. He's got other very good DPS picks, rounded out by the other members of the team. I think if you're Talon Esports right now, going into map number 2, I would expect a substitution. I would expect a bit of a pivot now, going into something a bit more DPS favored up against Cyclone Coupling.
Well, and here's the thing as well. If you've got a strat that you've been hiding, whether it's just now with the new patch or whether you've been hiding it since week 1 with all these 4-0s, you haven't needed to pull it out, this is actually the time they might have to pull it out. If Talon have a strat, like this is just sort of a macro strategy thing that teams do, they'll be looking at this matchup going, okay, in an ideal world, we don't want to pull this out. We don't want to show it before semis or even finals if we don't have to. They will have to reconsider that right now. If there is a strat available, they will have to pull it out in this series. They have to change something up here. The fact that there's this Doomfist variant, I can't really quite call it GOATs because it's not a flat 3-3. You've got the Doomfist in there. It was enough to take out Hong Kong Attitude's GOATs. It was enough to take out Talon's GOATs now. This, even if it's just a 1-team thing, this is our region's GOATs killer right now. Jackie on the Doomfist.
I just think the precedent being set by Jackie and Cyclone Coupling, not only in this map that we've seen so far, but also in the previous match that we've seen in their victory versus Hong Kong Attitude, is the fact that they have found a bit of a solution here, at least a winning formula for them. Not saying it's going to work for everyone out there, not saying it's even going to potentially work for Talon Esports if they want to play that mirror, but at least for Cyclone Coupling, it is something that is getting them wins, and that's important to note because if they had lost this opening map, there is some doubt in their minds, maybe this isn't going to beat Talon Esports, maybe we've got to go back to something else, but because it now has given them that 1 win, it's actually Talon Esports that have to do the thinking as we now get ready to go into map number 2, which is going to be played on the hybrid game mode, and to find out a little bit more about how that works, let's take a look at how it is.
Welcome to Eichenwald. This is hybrid. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to first capture a payload and then escort it along a set path containing 2 checkpoints. To capture the payload, the attackers need to stand within its range for a set amount of time. Defenders can delay capture progress by also standing in range. The attackers must work together to clear away the defenders. If successful, they score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby. To get moving again, the attackers must clear away the defenders by force. If even one attacker is capturing the objective or on the payload when the time runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared away or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
With that, let's go ahead and reveal what map number 2 actually is going to be. Selected by Talon Esports is going to be Numbani coming up next. So we are not going to be playing Hollywood for this series. And as far as Numbani does go, and this kind of does play into the substitution prediction that I do have as well, is especially on that A point, you do need to be bringing out something that is not necessarily the 3-3 GOATs. And Aquila is known to be playing a decent amount of Numbani as well, so that's what I'm expecting.
I think if we're going to see Talon prove that they are still the tournament favorites, they can't afford to drop another map here. And they can't even have close ones. Right?
They would have to reverse sweep.
They've got to kick into gear here. They've got to absolutely destroy Cyclone coupling from here on out in their series if they are to restore the confidence that this is the tournament favorite, the returning champion that's going to win again. Because suddenly, that entire notion has been thrown into jeopardy by Cyclone coupling and their Doomfist.
And in a bit of a turn of events here, it's actually going to be Talon Esports sticking on to the same, and this is going to be very interesting because now we do fall into space. If this doesn't work again, if we are on map 2 and this becomes an 0-2 in favor of Cyclone coupling, things do look very bad, but don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. CYC defending first, Jiki on Afara, X69 onto the Sombra.
X69 did take some pain on that flank, still hasn't actually topped that health off, and Yang Yang vulnerable, not able to put out that counter pressure with those DPS as well. X69 was getting some health back, now in a tough spot. They can't quite res Yang Yang either just yet. Eternal might just be losing the mech here as well, and this is a point where Cyclone coupling, they've actually got to back up, give some space, and maybe we'll get a respawn in time.
All right, so Jiki finally does have the rocket barrage, but he's down on members, down on ticks now, as 2 is about to go through. CYC can defend, but they must contest immediately, and they have to get value off their barrage.
Yang Yang respawns, dives right in, X69 commits as well. Nicely done with the barrage. They're able to cover him just long enough for him to find a weakened CYG. This is where they can start turning it around.
EMP available.
They do want to frag out. If they could preserve the EMP, they will, but they will just commit it. They're not going to try and be too conservative here. They would rather just hold the point, and it's paying off. Even pulling the Transcendence out of Persia, very nice little bonus there for CYC, but also quite an expensive defense.
Now that's the kind of thing where the EMP cost does get sort of nullified, or at least does get made up for by the fact that Persia used the Transcendence as well. That's going to be a big loss for Talon Esports, who are already down on members. If they walked away from that fight saying, we got both DPS out of that fight, they get to go in here with a bit of advantage, but currently that's not the case. They do still, though, only need 33% to cap.
And Cyclone coupling are very lean on ultimates. Red Fox taking big pain, he's down. The Nano, it's all right on the ground with Eternal. He does want to use that self-destruct before too long. It's kind of all they got to play with here. Has to commit it now. Tosses it Sky Eye. Does find Persia. That's a something, but the rest of these members in the grab, that's going to be Yang Yang at 99% to a Primal Rage as well. Very tough build to swallow. Talon going to clean up that second fight. It took them about half the time on the clock, but they do cap out. CYC might just be happy with that, though.
And I do want to say Red Fox going down as the Mercy first of all probably really hurts Cyclone coupling, because Jiki's ability to spam out damage as the Fire is very important for that defense to work. If he cannot get in the faces of Talon Esports and get a lot of damage to get that next rocket barrage available, he's not going to be the one carrying the damage for the team, which he needs to do on that comp. Because the Mercy is gone, the Fire doesn't do much else either. Cyclone coupling, they fall apart here. Jiki's back on Doomfist, Red Fox back on Lucio. Talon Esports are pushing through the streets with Villeneuve on Ryan.
Big difference though, Yang Yang still on the Winston because he wants to get mileage for the Primal Rage. Nice bubble on Persia, keeps him alive. That would have been an insta-game otherwise, but Villeneuve not so lucky. Bubble on cooldown, he gets isolated. Nice counter trade with the self-destruct, but that's quite an expensive counter trade. Persia really down to the wire. They're choosing to not pop the Transcendence. They're just going to force CYC back a bit.
Bit of a reset here.
And a very quick recommit.
Though, yeah, I mean, he just wants to get right back into that mix, and Cyclone coupling do need to get these Nyx ultimates up because they did make some swaps here, so they are behind.
They need a lot lose members while they're doing this. They're just trying to scrap Talon and slow down the payload as much as they can while they ready themselves for a proper engage.
They're running out of time for this point, though, as we are about to hit the terminus onto B. The Cyclone coupling, they still don't quite have those ults. Waiting for GCGG, he is very close.
Yeah, and Yang Yang is stuck to the Winston here as well. And there's Jeki into the back line. hasn't still forced that Transcendence out of Persia. Very nicely done. Meteor Strike channels still looking for it, but doesn't quite find it. Now that Transcendence by Persia off to great effect. Week's going to commit a grab here in countenance to Eternals, and neither quite... Oh, there it is. Finally, a Fire Strike to get for... It was looking like no one would get anything for either, but Talon end up getting all 6.
And that's a quad kill for Villeneuve as well, which is going to put him up to 90% as they head into C. A was a fairly good defense coming out from Cyclone Coupling. I mean, they won one fight. B was a bit of a non-factor. Now we're moving into C with 4 minutes, which was what they started on. Talon Esports have a lot of momentum here, a lot of snowball pressure, and for Cyclone Coupling, they spent ults on that B defense. They are now still running dry.
Speaking of momentum, a week preserves the charge. Eternal does not. There's that Earth Shatter from Villeneuve. Not very great commit though, but Gagora still manages to find a couple through. It's all going to pay off in the end. They didn't get a great Earth Shatter, they didn't get a great follow-up, but they still created a situation. They had the ultimates to burn there. They'll be happy to keep this moving because they're already coming back up on a grab.
And this momentum has not stopped just yet, and they are cycling into other ultimates. And for Cyclone Coupling, however, they've used ultimates on the defense. Yang Yang was not in position to block their self-destruct damage from 2 of his allies. That now loses them another fight. We're nearly at the final section of C.
And they're all stuck in a grab. That's going to be Yang Yang X69 down. Eternal very quick to follow. I mean, Jackie's really got his work cut out for him. Not going to be able to get that one in. Unfortunately, looks like about 3 or so minutes in the time bank there. And that's when Talon really turned on the heat. I think CYC could have maybe made a defense happen, but they never quite set themselves up for that winning situation. Talon, they just kept the momentum on their side.
And the conversation has to surround the A and B defense points, because once you get to C, and this is assuming that Cyclone Coupling continue to want to play Jackie on a DPS here, they continue to avoid playing the 3-3 goats here, you do need to start considering, once you get into C, whether that's offense or defense, the goats comp with the Rhine specifically is what is favored. That's the sort of position on the map where you kind of have to play it. And so once you're Cyclone Coupling in that position, there's 4 minutes remaining for Talon Esports because the B defense just wasn't really there. Talon Esports continue pushing on through, had a ton of momentum. Early Earth Shadow from Villeneuve after getting a quad kill onto B. There's far too much coming from the Talon side of things. And for Cyclone Coupling, just got completely ran over on the final steps.
Just weren't quite getting what they needed out of any of those scraps. If they'd maybe found a pick on Persia, forced out a Transcendence, something like that, could have been a very different story. And that's kind of the feast or famine nature of what CYC have been running, especially with that Doomfist being in the mix there. Now CYC, I don't think this is quite what they're going to commit to, but I'll be honest, stranger things have happened with this team.
I do also want to comment on the late swap from Yang Yang onto the Rhine as well. That kind of cost them towards the end. You started to see Villeneuve outpacing him significantly on this Earth Shatter sort of charging, and that is very similar to what we saw in the Guardians the other way around, where Villeneuve was the one to swap a little bit late. But we are now going on to the Talon defense side of things. So Winston goes, it's a Cyclone Coupling, X69 going to be the one playing DPS now with that McCree.
This is a bit of an interesting one. It's kind of, I suppose you have to just call it a Super McCree here. I mean, insofar as it's a number of tanks and then a McCree.
Protecting the McCree is very key here. Very common composition we do see from attackers. Talon know that as well, which is why they're putting a lot of pressure on the doors.
Yeah, and this is very smart. Trade is there, at least they found Gagora's mech, but still, Talon can just put a pedal down on the gas here. Flank around from Yang Yang is just too little too late. Might actually end up in a dangerous position if he's not careful.
This is where scouting is very important for Talon Esports as well. They knew which direction Cyclone Coupling were going to play in. They knew what kind of composition they're going to be playing. And for X69 now going on to the Zara. This is going to be the first time in the series, I believe, it's Cyclone Coupling going to play in what is more of a traditional GOATS comp here with the 3-3. Playing onto the high ground, even onto the low ground here, forcing Talon Esports to now rotate onto the point with them.
Gagora's already back in the mech as well, so that one little thing that Cyclone did actually get out of that last fight, no longer a factor. This is a very long wraparound as well. They've at least weathered the first part of that move. Talon not quite quick enough on the trigger there.
Cyclone Coupling actually need to force a fight early because Talon are ahead in ults. Yeah. The longer you wait, the higher the chance there is going to be a response. Villeneuve now has that Primal Rage, and CYC, they got to brawl eventually anyway.
Oh, Yang Yang took so much hurt, kind of forced a sound barrier. Now they've got to make hay while the sun's shining. It's tough ask, because Persia's got a Transcendence to just keep things Pixie and Rosie on the side of Talon. Now the grab out, and Cyclone coupling. Oh, in the nick of time, GCGG got the Transcendence. Now they maybe have a shot in this fight. Villeneuve throwing out a Primal Rage was matched by Yang Yang. Self-destruct goes wide, and the sound barrier from Haru about to run out. A weak gets picked. CYC have started to turn this bad boy around. Now they're going to be committing their own grab. Nice self-destruct, lay it in. Self-destruct is there, but everyone's already dead by the time it goes off. Gogora drops, TYG to follow, Persia down as well, and that's going to be the point open wide up.
And that's only one member down for CYC as well, so it's not like Talon Esports can come back quickly enough to really get that player advantage in there. Red Fox has already respawned. 2 ticks gone. The third one we'll be following very soon. And for Cyclone coupling, they were able to get those ultimates up towards the end there. And that's the thing for Talon Esports is despite having the early ult advantage, they used their ultimates first, but they could not find the kills. They could not find the value. When CYC get those ultimates, that grab ended that fight. The grab gave them the A cap. And now Talon Esports setting up for B on the corner.
It's going to be a big difference between Talon's defense and CYC's defense. Talon are A, they're quicker, and B, on a Reinhardt. That's an early Transcendence, kind of forced from GCGG to keep Yang Yang in the fight. Again, they've got to make something happen while it's running, but no, Persia's going to get his Transcendence, and GCGG gets charged out. Now Yang Yang isolated up the front. Not enough healing to keep him alive. He drops, and now Talon looking to set up a spawn camp.
That's where the discipline's really important for Talon Esports because they did not choose to try and contest after they lost that initial team fight onto A. They chose to regroup, change Villeneuve onto Orion early as well. He's now leading in terms of Earthshatter charge, and they wanted to defend that corner. Because they win the fight at the corner, the cart has not made any distance, and they can play the grab now in a sneaky spot.
Yeah, they've got a grab self-destruct combo as well. Oh, no!
Oh, dear.
Oh, red out. Nicely done by CYC. Still have to commit an sound barrier to get in the fight. Self-destruct from Gogora. Actually found Red Fox and Eternal's mech. A little bit of a sloppy shield up there, but Villeneuve still isolated. And with TYG in a week already down, it's quite easy for CYC with the closer respawn to just pick apart the remainder of Talon, at least those who have not already gone into full retreat.
Well, the good news for Talon, though, is because the cart didn't initially have that good of a movement, they do get a regroup. There will be another fight happening onto B, and for Cyclone coupling, very unlikely that they're going to go into C with a competitive time for that time bank push. And for Talon Esports, what kind of ultimates can they get here? Because it's coming down to supports versus tank ultimates. Yang Yang with the Shadow.
That's one advantage that CYC had. The Shadow goes out, and it's a decent one. There's a nice counter with the Transcendence from Persia. Sound barrier coming up for Haru as well. Self-destruct laid out. They find TYG. He's isolated, but traded with Yang Yang. It's not a trade CYC are particularly happy with.
Grab ready.
Grab available. Need to be careful where they commit it. They need to respect the mech from Gogora. He's looking for an angle, throws it down. Where's the follow-up? It's hard to get the damage in without Yang Yang swinging the hammer or a self-destruct to layer on, but they still find a weak. They still find Gogora's mech. Cyclone coupling are just looking unstoppable, and no matter how ahead or behind they seem in the fight, they're just pulling these frags out of thin air.
And this is where Talon Esports actually had double support ultimates, but TYG went down super early. They had to play 5 versus 6, so eventually, when they did want to counter things out, Cyclone coupling was still in there. They weren't traded back. No members of CYC really went down there either, so they had the ultimates coming through. The grab was very effective. Gogora didn't see that one this time, and Talon Esports now on the back foot. They're defending C. They must force a reset here.
It's going to be a tough one still, though, for CYC. Talon are coming up on the big ultimates here. Transcendence available. Nice smack back to get Yang Yang on the back, rather, and Jackie goes down as well. And without even having to commit the ultimates, Talon have already, well, Rally notwithstanding, they've already managed to rebuff Cyclone the one crucial time.
So the good news is, because we're now sitting at 2 minutes and 30, CYC are definitely not going to have a better time in the time bank than Talon Esports. In fact, they're at the sort of stage where it's going to take a few fights in a row for Cyclone coupling to actually finish the map. So there is a bit of a risk that if CYC do finish, it will be the overtime instead. Yeah. Talon Esports especially are coming up on some very important ultimates. It's going to be grab for grab and support ultimates on both sides.
Both also have a self-destruct to layer on the grab. That's going to be a significant one as well. I think one of the real shifts will be the fact that right now, Persia has an ultimate, GCGG does not. He's close, but not quite there. That could be a difference maker.
Shadow difference could also be the other difference maker, but it needs to land. I don't know if that really caught anyone, maybe one player.
It did not. It does get a sound barrier out from Red Fox as they push forward, but that really just forces Talon now backwards. Villeneuve nearly got picked in the mix of that, but not quite. And now the sound barrier's run out. Talon are looking for an angle to commit here, though. They haven't quite found it, and the cart's approaching.
And honestly, Talon Esports still have their sound barrier, so that's one advantage that they can pressure in with.
They're going to have to commit it soon. Here we go. Haru, there we go. Looking to move forward. CYC, though, they read it. They back off. Wait out the health. Now we're all even Stevens on ultimates with Yang Yang coming up on an Earth Shatter. Suddenly, Cyclone coupling it, flipped the script. That's going to be the Transcendence to counter out the grab. Self-destruct layered up.
Oh,
Fight 2, absolutely huge. And with GCGG sitting pretty with his own Transcendence, they only lose Red Fox and Gagora's self-destruct. Eternal already back in the mech, tearing things apart. And Talon, they're falling apart at the seams on the final stretch here as well. Cyclone coupling, again, they're just finding something out of nothing. They were behind. They did not have the ultimates. They played it so smart, evened up the score, and now we go into time back.
And that's the thing, because Haru actually used his sound barrier in a similar fashion to where Red Fox used hers. And that's an issue for Talon Esports because they had that sound barrier advantage. They had one support ultimate to counter one tank ultimate on the other side from CYC. There was a Shatter and also a Graviton Surge from Cyclone coupling. But when Persia had to use the Transcendence to counter the Graviton Surge, nothing was there to counter out the Earth Shatter. And Villeneuve and the rest of his team on Talon's side got knocked down by Yang Yang for Cyclone coupling, cleaned them out, including the self-destruct kills coming from Eternal. There was one responded by Gagora, but that's a little bit too late. That's not enough for Talon Esports to rescue that defense anymore. But going into time back, we did speak about the fact that Talon Esports capped out the map faster, so they do still have advantage here.
This is going to be an interesting one as well, because it's a flat minute to 3:08. It was 55 seconds that Cyclone coupling capped with, so it's only an extra 5 on the clock for them. But, I mean, it's 3 times as much time that Talon have. Cyclone coupling, they're no fools. They are going to look like they're sticking on goats here. They know they've only got one shot at this, and if they want to put some good distance, they will need the snowball that goats provides.
The thing is, they've been punished for running Super McCree because, well, they tried it, they got locked out of the choke, and they couldn't find any success with it so far. They know with only 1 minute, they do not have the opportunity to lose with the composition, go for the change and try and win again. I mean, they can absolutely do that, but they'll be so far behind at that stage, it's almost not worth doing at all. So the Cyclone coupling playing the safe option here. Just start with goats. You know you've won with this before. You know you can win with it again.
And they're not going to look to make some long rotation. Maybe they are. They actually are considering it. And this is a bit of a dangerous spot. X69 got stunned up. He might not make it out. Yeah, they really drag their feet making this rotation. And there's the punish. And it's a late one at that. The rest of the members, can they regroup? Can they at least take a dive? They've only got 25 seconds. Too slow, Cyclone.
You'll be damned if you can fool Talon Esports twice here. They've seen this rotation before, and this time they are so much more ready to just intercept it. For Cyclone coupling, you saw how much early damage there was, how much CC and the damage numbers they were actually taking. Talon Esports now 10 seconds remaining on this defense, and they're gonna come up to ultimates if this fight goes long, and that's how they're gonna win.
At least they get another shot here. They dive in with Yang Yang, they get on the point. It's still a tough ask, but they find TYG. They've got a numbers advantage. GCGG as well went low for a split second, but he's just fine. Yang Yang sky high to stay alive. Oh, nice save there. A week nearly went down, but Persia in the nick of time with the Transcendence, and now CYC a bit behind. You'll see TYG rejoining the team as well. Far faster than Yang Yang will. Jackie with a rally, but Talon coming up on key ultimates as Jackie goes down. A week as well coming up on a grab, self-destruct up from Gagora, just to pressure out these last few members on the point, even finding Red Fox and Eternal Smack. No third to cap from CYC. Talon are going to fully hold. Now CYC have to match that for 3 whole minutes if they want to force a draw.
And you can see how damaging that first fight loss off the bad rotation from Cyclone coupling really cost them. 4 members feeding ultimates, 2 members going off the side. Those are the only 2 members that they kind of had. Deathset didn't really swing things in the favor of Talon Esports, but the damage was done. Once we get into that final remaining fight, the ultimate advantage was just way too much for Talon Esports. They got all of theirs first. Persia, first Transcendence, Gagora, self-destruct before Cyclone coupling had anything. Primal Rage used by Villeneuve. Yang Yang still charging his. There is certainly no way they can really catch up unless Talon Esports, again, do not find value, but that's not the case this time. They do complete the hold, not a single tick for Cyclone coupling, who now have to kind of play for a bit of a draw scenario. They have to hold 1 tick for 3 minutes and 8 seconds to just get the draw.
I'm not sure if CYC were indecisive or if they were maybe trying to bait out a maneuver from Talon, if they were trying to fake them out by pretending to do the same rotation. And if that was the case, well, Talon didn't take the bait, and suddenly CYC were like, well,
I mean,
we back off?
Or they took the bait and you realize you reeled in a shark and your rod couldn't handle it. Either way you look at it, it doesn't look good because you've either tried to do the same thing again, which does get red, or you've tried to do a bait that absolutely did not work. And now you're in a sort of scenario where this defense has to be absolutely solid, going to be putting the gun back in the hands of X69 onto the Super McCree, and this has to be absolutely perfect. Any mistake means that Talon Esports will cap out and win.
Yeah, he's looking to stop the fighting with that Peacemaker. See if it works out for him. They are about to find out about it. Oh, a little aggressive on that one. Would have maybe wanted a week to be a bit further forward. Now they need to not overextend. Yang Yang moves too far forward, and now in full retreat. They're going to have a hard time getting out of this one. They just need to find a pick as Talon move forward. Sonny, they can't protect. X69, he goes down. Haru finds that. Dreads Needle with the slowest moving projectile, I swear. And now a week absolutely unleashed. They're able to drop Eternal out of the mech, and this is all over. But the crying, Talon, they will cap their third. They will even up the score. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Just got a little bit too greedy there. Tried to fight at a little bit too close range for that McCree to really handle. Van the Hammer has not been buffed in this patch, so we're still on slightly lower damage. It's going to even things out here, 1-1 in the series. And Talon Esports, we do also have to admit here, it did go into time bank, so it was very competitive, no matter which way you slice it, and very competitive also describes where both the teams are currently sitting in terms of actual score.
It's very interesting as well. We have now evened things up. Like you said, though, very competitive. I think there are two major things actually I want to touch on here. On the whole, CYC's defense was weaker, that much I would say. But I would dare say that CYC's offense, at least in the main phase, time bank has its own issues. But when you've got only that 1 minute, look, sometimes that is just how things play out. I will actually give them some credit on their offense. The fact that they did fully cap out in the end, they recognized, look, Super McCree's not going to work here, let's do this. That paid off instantly. I have seen so many teams get spawn camps till the end of days by Talon, both on that first spawn and then on the second spawn as well after the cap. Even in Talon trying to set up that spawn camp and actually being in a position where they could do it, they had ultimate advantage, they had positional advantage. CYC battled their way out of it very, very quickly, all things considered.
Eternal's gravity certainly helped.
Yeah, they only lost a little bit of time for it, but they kept finding ways to even up situations where they were at a deficit and then win fights. That's worth something.
Well, it certainly does seem now Talon have taken the gloves off as they have now fought back one into the series. Going to take a bit of a break here, but when we do return, we are going to be concluding here our first quarter final of the playoff stage here in Contenders Season 3 Pacific. We'll see you right after this.